Hi guys, I'm back with part 2 of how to do watercolor. This video is going to be about how to watercolor without actual watercolors. I know that most of you don't have this at home, so I'm going to show you how to do watercolor without having an actual official set of watercolors. So I actually have a cup of coffee here, and I'm going to show you how you can actually paint and make different values with the coffee. You can do this with other things as well. I just picked coffee because I'm assuming it's a staple that you most likely have in your house. But you can use tea. Different types of tea are going to give you different colors. You can use basically anything in your kitchen. You can use food coloring mixed with water. You can blend up some fruits and vegetables and see if you can get some dyes out of those. I know beets or something like that would make a really cool color. So you can get pretty creative with this. But our next stage of our project is obviously going to be to add like shading and color, hopefully, in the form of watercolor. My vision for this was actual real watercolors that we were going to use in class. But now obviously our circumstances are different. So I have my cup of coffee, and then over here I have a cup of water. Okay, so I'm just going to start by dipping my brush into the coffee, okay, and putting it down on my paper. Okay, and you can see that it's pretty light in color. And in order to keep making that darker and darker, you would keep going over it. And so what you would have to do is you would have to create layers. So just like I was talking about in the first watercolor video, that watercolor does need to be layered, one layer on top of the other to build the color up. The same thing here. So I would let this coffee dry in my areas where I want it to be light. Okay, and then my next layer, I would come back in after this has dried. Okay, so I would do all my areas that I want to be the lightest. Of course, leaving the paper white in areas that you want to be white. But I'm looking at my reference image, and I'm looking at all the areas that are the lightest on the page. And all the areas that are the lightest on the page. So I'm identifying those spaces, and I'm coming in with my coffee or my tea, whatever I'm using, and I'm adding in all the lightest areas, okay? I'm not doing one area at a time, I'm just doing all the lightest areas first. And then I'm gonna let it dry, okay? And after that's already dried, then I can come in and do the next darkest layer on top of this. And as you add, okay, as the coffee dries, when you add another layer on top, it's going to get darker and darker and darker, okay? So this is a wet on dry technique, meaning that your last layer of watercolor will need to be dry before you add another one on top. I'm going to encourage you to do a practice page. I don't know what kind of paper you did your drawing on, because I'm not there with you. I don't know what you have, but I'm using watercolor paper because I have it. But I would test out whatever material you're going to use. Coffee, tea, juice, food coloring, whatever it is that you're going to use. I would test it out on a similar piece of paper first, just like we were practicing in class before we weren't able to go to class anymore. Okay, so this is kind of almost dry. You can see, if I pull it close, you can see like it's got a little bit of color on there. And I'm just going to come back in with my brush, and I'm going to do another layer right on top.
She's gonna do this watercolor like I am.
Charlotte's supposed to be napping right now. Right? Okay, so you can see the area that I went over once it was dry is slightly darker, okay? So the teacher in me is encouraging you to do like a little bit of a value scale sort of situation before you do it on your real page, okay? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions.